All right, looking at yearly highs now. Of course, Bitcoin is flying through the charts. We'll break down a little bit of that, along with some ETH news, and give you guys some insights as to where maybe Ethereum is going to be going. Give you guys a full rundown. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsor, and that is iTrust Capital, looking at long-term holding. Get into a crypto IRA. One thing you can do, obviously, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but you can also get into a ton of altcoins over there, and you will be joining a ton of people. What it is now is up to 200,000 accounts, 7 billion in transactions. The way it works, very simple. You can start an IRA. You can either port one in, or you can do all sorts of maneuvers around your own tax position. Make sure and check that out. Use our link down below. You're going to get a $100 funding reward if you use our link, so helps the channel out. All right, let's get into a few points here. I want to talk about a couple of things in reference to, is this bull market real? Because there are still people out there pushing toward a complete reversal that is coming at us. Question mark will be is what causes that? What are the things that you could be looking at? This tweet right here, S&P, one of the best November performances in a century. That's now up 19% year to date. NASDAQ up 35%. Bitcoin soared 150%. Gold is hitting its record highs. Few investors have anticipated such a bullish year unfolding. And if you just look at that right there, look at that. That's all green, man. That's crazy. Apple, Tesla, Amazon, GE. I mean, it's just all over the board, much less what we see within the market. So love to get your feedback. Do you guys think we are in a full-on bull run right here? Make sure and just give some comments down below. It is the thing that helps us understand what you guys love to talk about here on the show. And make sure to hit the smash that like button. Do it right now. It helps the channel, and it also helps people kind of discover what's happening out there within the markets as well. Maybe they're brand new to crypto. All right, I want to go to a clip real quick. This is on CNBC talking about Bitcoin breaking 40K. Listen in.
A couple of things are happening here. For one, the market, as you mentioned, is expecting to finally see a rate cut in the coming year after recent comments from Fed Chair Powell last week. But really the big thing on everyone's mind are the spot Bitcoin ETFs. Traders are increasingly bullish that the SEC will approve one of those applications by the first quarter of 2024, potentially as early as mid-January. This would allow investors to buy into digital currency directly through the same mechanism that they already use to buy stocks and bond ETFs. So you've got top asset managers, including BlackRock, WisdomTree, and Invesco, that have filed applications with the SEC. And part of why this is so significant, Bernstein points out in a note today that the spot Bitcoin ETFs are really the largest pipe ever built between traditional financial markets and crypto financial markets. They're expecting that 10% of Bitcoin in supply, or around $300 billion, will ultimately be managed by these ETFs by 2028. Meanwhile, crypto-pegged stocks also moving higher this morning. Digital asset exchange Coinbase up more than 6%, MicroStrategy more than 7%, and Bitcoin miner Marathon Digital up more than 9%. Also worth noting, Coinbase is that custody partner for a lot of these spot Bitcoin ETF applications. Their stock was up more than 60% in November, Mike. Back to you guys.
All right, so you guys get the picture real quick. This is at least a lot of indicators that push toward a bull market. How Bitcoin bull market tracks to other major price rallies. This was a couple of points I wanted to focus on here in this article. Up nearly 1/5 over the past month. That's 150% over the year to date. Also on par with Meta, but trailing NVIDIA. This, of course, is correlating Bitcoin at 42K with what's happening in the big seven when you think about just traditional stocks. Another thing that was kind of noted here, while not an exact science, standard definitions say the bull markets are confirmed when an asset climbs 20% from recent lows, and bear markets are, of course, confirmed if a 20% drop from prior highs. So if that were the case, if it was using textbook models here, then we definitely are in a bull run. But again, I think this all boils down to what's happening. If you look at some of the indicators, if you look at historical, market cycles, and you can kind of see the one that we had here recently, and then where we might be in the current one. And this, of course, is right where we're starting to take off right now. Is this the marker where Bitcoin hitting the 40K, possibly 42? Do we get a little bit of a retrace right here? And then we have a full-on bull run. And what would that look like? Because cycle-wise, in terms of happening and whether or not you believe it or not, I've had many people on the show here recently that just think it's another thing that just adds to this. Obviously, the ETF a big part of this. But I'd love to know your position. Do you feel like this is the position right now where Bitcoin and the crypto markets start to really excel? Other things I want to hit on right here, of course, and that is digital and physical gold is rallying at the same time. Many people look at this and think that Bitcoin and gold correlates quite uniquely, other than Peter Schiff. But the point being is that Bitcoin and gold, now gold hitting a recent all-time high, and Bitcoin, of course, pretty much on its way, have not seen these numbers since the last bull run going to 69K. So what do you think is going to happen around this? This is a big one. Peter Schiff, of course, looks at it. You know, the typical Peter tweet right here. Gold pulling back now below 21 has provided a catalyst for Bitcoin to spike near 41. So he's looking at some of the real granular moves that are happening. This could be Bitcoin's swan song. The speculative frenzy around Bitcoin's ETF will end soon. Maybe this is going to be a critical January. And the reason that it will be critical is if Bitcoin does see a major correction pulling off of that, because that would be kind of the, you know, buy the rumor, sell the news scenario. Or does Bitcoin pull off a little bit and then hold a, say, above 35 or possibly above 30? Where would be the number for you in terms of Bitcoin's price if we did see a retracement that would cause you to kind of take pause? Or is there a number at all? Or are you just saying, hey, this is all the way to the top? Love to kind of get your input on that. Also, another key indicator here is you kind of follow some of the investors that are out there. This, of course, is the Franklin Templeton CEO. She holds Bitcoin, ETH, and Uniswap, and then SushiSwap. So understanding DeFi, a couple points here in the article. She expressed a preference for mature investments with clear financial returns. That's ETH. Stating that all NFTs make sense from a personal investment perspective, but I tend to make investments in things that are anchored in having financial returns. And you know, obviously, Ethereum is one of the biggest ones there. Then you look at just some of the other aspects around things like Uniswap and SushiSwap, obviously DEXs, and what we'll see in terms of swap protocols starting to really, you know, become a very popular part of this next cycle. We've already started to see that just with Uniswap starting to move here recently, but just the flexibility of new people coming in the market and understanding what DeFi is. That'll be another big push right here. Are institutional investors buying Bitcoin or Ethereum? Here's a little bit of the latest data. A couple of focus points right here. According to research, investors are more skeptical of ETH and other altcoins compared to Bitcoin. According to the research data, institutional investors put 45% of their positions in stablecoins, 35% in Bitcoin, and then also stated that 15%, that's a lot, 15% into ETH and 5% into altcoins. What's your mix right now? How are you guys holding your portfolios in terms of your weighting? And then of that weighting, what is your mix overall against your entire portfolio as a whole, just your investment portfolio? Love to know what that might be, how it lines up, because I think a lot of people are starting to take cash off the sideline. According to recent research, especially in September, half the assets portfolio of institutional investors were allocated Bitcoin. And then, however, institutional investors now also saw an increase in ETH holdings, also in September. And again, this has been around a little bit of positive market sentiment on ETF news, obviously exciting the market, meaning even Ethereum ETFs possibly lining up with that as well. If you look at Ethereum right now, what is the next target for it? Here's what a lot of people are looking at. Obviously, it's the natural evolution beyond where we are right now at 2,200. Could 3,000 be in the cards right now? A couple of points within this. Average unit price for investors who want to hold ETH for a long-term broke through $2,000. A lot of people looked at that as the kind of the indicator. 2150 was the one that everybody was kind of pointing to as the upside. So this happened a couple days over the weekend. Long-term investors have turned profit, which is likely to act as key support, meaning people just aren't going to sell now. At this point, we're at a point of no return, and I think that is where we potentially go for sure. Here was Ryan Sean Adams from Bankless. He's kind of jumping in on a couple of points, saying, you know, ETH is still very undervalued. ETH now makes $2.7 billion in annualized profits. The only profitable chain. PE ratio is 98, slightly more than Amazon. So that's a big deal. I mean, if you were comparing, you can't really compare these kinds of assets to traditional securities, but it's a good, you know, it's a good exercise. If it had the monetary amplifier of gold, it'd already be worth around 22K. Definitely can't do that either. Gold is $11 to $12 trillion asset. ETH right now, you know, sub 400. So that I see is a problem there. ETH is still the internet bond. I agree with that. I think ETH is kind of the catalyst of where we're going to see Web3 continue to grow just because of the powerhouse that is behind it. Obviously, there are things what we will see happen with Ethereum, which is why I always look to hedge my own bets, and that would be some other layer ones, which is, you guys know those, Avalanche and Solana. Ethereum likely to get a spot ETF. Agree there. I think that's going to be a big factor there, and it will cause Ethereum to continue its run. Whether we see a retracement here, what would be the point of a retrace that would cause you maybe to dollar cost average back into ETH? Because I know you guys probably are not chasing this up the chart right now. So what would be the point right now? Is it around 2K? Or if it just responded, let's say ETH goes to 3K, would 2K be a new entry point for you for a dollar cost average position? And his last statement here, which I totally agree with, ETH has not had its bull run for sure. And I think all of this, Bitcoin has still not had its bull run. All the altcoins have still not seen this. Gaming has not seen this. We are in the early stages of what a lot of people believe is the next generation of the internet. Remember, Raoul Paul hits on a couple things right here. ETH will be burning a record amount of supply, and record amounts of ETH will be locked up for staking. That's a good thing because it's going to continue to hold that price. This is an epic supply and demand shock in the making. Agree that to a certain point. I think the key here will be how strong some of the other layer ones become. And what I mean by that is how will they be impacted by what could be happening in the NFT space and in the gaming space. If you've been following our market sentiment index, this was just our numbers last week. Showing Bitcoin's move right here ahead of the move that actually happened. So a nice little spike. And again, amplification spiked above it. If you look at Ethereum, this thing happened last week on the 30th, and we got this massive move last Friday, which really kind of indicated what we saw over the weekend on Saturday when we saw Bitcoin and ETH both running to some new highs. All right, so a couple other things to be on the watch out for right now is Eric Balchunas. He's hitting on a little bit around the ETF and where the status is on that. Let me kind of zoom in on that tweet for you guys if I can. Sometimes it doesn't want to zoom in. Latest look for S1 filing updates this week, which would answer round 2 comments from the SEC, which he heard were exhaustive and possible final, meaning we might be at the very closing cycle here. Remember, Jan 10th is the deadline. Jan 5th could be remember that 5th is the return date after the holiday. So we could get some action that early week. Does not look like we're going to see something happen this year, even though, who knows, we could be surprised. Very interesting stuff. Now, don't forget, we've got other actions, and that is regulation trying to come in. And you've got Warren Davidson, of course, kind of hitting on Gary Gensler again with passing the SEC Stabilization Act. Remember what Emmer said last week at the Blockchain Policy Summit is that there could be, remember, they're in the middle of a session right now. So could we be seeing a little bit of action here before the end of the month, before holiday break? And is it the time for possibly the House to actually vote a crypto bill into law? That would be a very intriguing situation. Of course, Davidson kind of hitting on all these points of we've got too much overreach from the SEC. Also, on another thing, Coinbase dominating the Bitcoin spot ETF custodian race right there. If you look at the applicants and who the custodians are, pretty much Coinbase. Boom, boom, boom. There's Gemini, self-custody in there, and then hashtags not available. The point is, Coinbase is winning this race in a big way. And if you think about what's happening in their stock, it was mentioned earlier in the CNBC article, is that this stock has absolutely run like crazy, almost 98% growth. And this is going back to just October 27th. So that in itself is one, I think, shocking for a lot of people that have been looking at what's been happening. And even if you look at Hood right now, Robinhood had this big dump after their earnings miss. And then all of a sudden, where is that? Let's take a look at this growth right here on Hood back here of where it's playing right now. Almost 20% coming in from the 22nd of November to where we are right now in the first week of December. So are you guys playing these? Are you looking at some of the mining stocks? Is that an alternative for you around trying to hedge? And also looking at, balancing a portfolio, because you don't want to be obviously all in on crypto or all in on stocks or all in on real estate. Where are you guys playing this? Lots of different plays for sure. Don't forget that Stand with Crypto is still a very, very important key thing for next year's presidential run. Excited to announce the first ever crypto presidential forum is happening. This is going to be happening in New Hampshire. Remember, this of course will be huge. And I think this is going to be another factor that is only going to put crypto at the forefront of where some of these presidential candidates are positioning themselves. Maybe we see a new presidential candidate starting to line up in here, because we've already had Kennedy come in, obviously Ramaswamy. Do we get a Nikki Haley or even a DeSantis who's shown, some elusiveness around it, but also some supportive elements in it? Love to get your feedback. Who's your presidential candidate, by the way? Drop a comment down below. Kind of curious. Last up here is Brian Armstrong, and he's kind of becoming the voice of crypto, and for good reason. I mean, he's pretty much the largest IPO out there in the United States, largest exchange. And he goes into a few points. Bitcoin may be the key to extending Western civilization. That's a little bit grandiose, okay, but I'm still listening. U.S. is somewhere on this journey, which may have discussed in the Dalio changing the world order. If you haven't listened to Ray Dalio talk about the shift of world order, he mostly references China, but it's an interesting thought process to maybe throw in Bitcoin as maybe an area around this. They may start moving fiat into crypto as an antidote to inflation. That could happen as well. I don't think this is a threat to the dollar. It will be a natural check and balance that will complement the dollar. Could be also. It's better to move from dollars to crypto than another country of region's fiat. Think BRICS. And then, of course, they are also more complements than substitutes. Dollar-backed stablecoins like USDC or Flatcoin, which was the stablecoin from Coinbase proposal, will play a major role in unifying these worlds. I think stablecoins are going to be a key factor here. The minute that we see regulation with stablecoins come through, that is, I think that's when we would see banks really start to adapt, businesses adapting, along with all sorts of innovation around payments, which are really going to be the holy grail, I think, for crypto in general and blockchain. So we're going to be covering this and a lot more this week. We got a whole slew of great guests lined up, so don't miss it. Make sure and subscribe to the channel. It's very easy to do. And if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, get in right now. It's another great place to be for additional content. And if you guys want to follow me out there on X, it's @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.